Hey, Daddy, this is the man of the champions, Bill Fonzie Alfonso, giving a shout out to something else. Something else, Daddy.
This is Nickel Matata, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to something else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Aria.
And welcome to episode number 174 of Something Else. Feast your ear holes on this week's episode as we take a look at NWA Total Nonstop Action from March 12th, 2003. My name is Aria, and joining me, as always, is the lollipop to my Hollywood. It's Cindy. Cindy, how the hell are you today?
Well, how do I even respond to that with a pithy thing that ties into today's show? I'll save it for the review of the segment.
Yes, because even on a show that by and large is better than the average episode of TNA, there has to be dumb shit. And, whenever you need dumb shit, you just call TNA because TNA will be happy to give it to you.
I will
All
say
right.
we have reached 9 months of this.
God, yes. Next week's technically the 9-month anniversary because March 19th versus June 19th. I I can't believe we've lasted this long. So this is the 36th pay-per-view. Technically, we only did 35 of them because 36 was that 1 week Best of the X Division episode that we skipped to do the Best Damn Sports Show period. Out of 37 weeks, because we did 2 Best Damn shows, how many times have you wanted to quit?
Honestly,
Yes.
none.
I don't know. I think I'm at about 20. Usually, any of those shows that would start with the 20-minute Vince Russo shoot promo, bro, I was ready to quit then.
I'm kind of
Yeah.
shocked that you haven't. You haven't told. That doesn't mean say this was a bad idea. Brian and Vinny were right. We're just gonna do something else. Do you have any ideas? And I would have had a couple of ideas.
No, we're at 36 in at this point. I think out of pure spite, we're gonna keep going and seeing how this goes. Just because, spoiler, D'Lo Brown is debuting on this week's show. Spoiler for a 21-year-old, 22-year-old wrestling show that we're
Oh,
about
we're
to review
gonna
in the next
talk
hour.
about that. We need to talk about
Oh
that.
God. Oh, I thought we were just gonna skip him. But
No, we're
so
not skipping that. If you skip that segment, I would be hosting the show myself.
here's what I know. D'Lo Brown is going to have some really good wrestling matches on this show over the next year or so. The first TNA match I ever saw was when I was in college, and TNA had like 3 single matches up on their website, and it was an AJ Styles D'Lo Brown match. And I just remember, like, A, it was the first AJ Styles match I'd ever seen to the best of my knowledge because I didn't remember him in WCW. And B, like, it was the best D'Lo Brown I'd ever seen. So I know that there is a D'Lo Brown AJ Styles match coming up in like June or July that's going to be off the fucking charts, and just out of this world. And I know D'Lo Brown, he's only here for like a year and a half. I don't even know if he makes it to Impact, to be honest. But either way, because he's going to go to All Japan, and All Japan's going to become his primary gig at some point. But either way, like I know D'Lo's going to have a lot of good shit. But you know what this show also is, Cindy? This episode is step one in the Disco Inferno main event push that got me to quit watching these things the first time I tried watching these things. Because of all the crap we watched over the last 36 weeks and all the crap we are currently scheduled to watch for the next year and a half, the one thing that broke me was Disco Inferno getting a world title match on pay-per-view. It's just ick. But that's still some time away. But D'Lo has a lot of strengths, and apparently cutting a promo is not one of them, and arguing for yourself is not one of them. Because this show, man, oh man, Maddie, um, he quickly it becomes obvious why WWE got rid of him. Although it wasn't just WWE didn't force anybody to book him the way he got booked on this show. I guess we'll say.
Yeah.
And anyway, we're gonna tell you some stuff about this week in the Wrestling Observer newsletter about TNA. And Cindy, I hope you're sitting down for this because I'm going to tell you something that Dave was reporting in 2003 that just seems impossible to believe. And for the life of me, I can't imagine why this is happening. But somehow, some way, TNA's business is ticking upwards. This show, the live event. Now we talked about this last week that they were going to start cutting back on the free tickets to encourage people to actually pay to go to the shows. So this week, what they did was they had two lines: one for the people who paid, one for the people who are waiting to get in for free. And the people who are waiting to get in for free, uh, they were going to have to wait until at least 6:30 to be let in. At that point, at 6:30 Central, and the pay-per-view starts at 7 p.m. Central. So by that point, they would have already missed at least one of the pre-show matches, which apparently upset a lot of people for some reason. But anyway, this way of doing it led to a substantial increase in people paying for tickets, as instead of the usual 300 to 350, nearly 700 people jumped into the paid line to buy tickets to go into the show this week. And then, in case, I mean, okay, 700 people, you should be able to get 700 people to pay $10 to watch your damn wrestling show, especially with this much talent on it. But then the part that's even more insane, if you ask me, the pay-per-view buys are ticking upwards. DirecTV, which is, the first ever report pay-per-view numbers, they're reporting a substantial increase. And if the non-DirecTV systems are increasing at a similar rate, it's estimated that TNA now is doing around 15,000 buys a week, which is, okay, not a gigantic amount, but it's a lot more than the 6 or 7,000 they normally do. And somehow these people are buying this show, these pay-per-views. Cindy, why the hell are people doing this?
I think they looked
Like,
at the WWE product at the time. Let's take a look at Raw, for example. What's the big angle for Raw?
well, depending on your point of view, it's either the build to Rock Austin 3 at WrestleMania, or it's the Triple H Reign of Terror, where Booker T, people like Booker T don't deserve to win world titles.
There's your answer right there. It's that build. It turned a lot of people off.
But that doesn't mean that it's going to cause people like, hey, I'm going to go pay $10 a week to watch a pay-per-view for this. So that's like I can't even tell you why somebody would pay $10 a week. Like, are there that many Raven fans out there that are like, oh my God, Raven is wrestling Sandman in 2003. I need to pay to watch that. I I don't know. It just seems preposterous to me. And, you know, that's like I don't know,
You're also
because
forgetting what's the big things going on right now in cable systems, digital cable, which means there are a lot more availability for pay-per-view channels. So Comcast, I know, aired TNA pay-per-views back in 2003, 2004, we'll say. And they had them on like 803 or 804 or something like that. The big one was 801. So it's more available. It's available in more homes. And if there's a wrestling fan out there, it's like, I want to watch something besides WWE, or if they're one of the lucky ones, whatever local wrestling has a TV show at this point, I want to watch something else. Ring of Honor, granted, is better right now, much better, but they don't have the distribution.
I mean, I'd have to think that anybody who is a weekly buyer of the TNA pay-per-views, especially, it's like you have to know what Ring of Honor is, and I don't get it. Like, yeah, like if you watch TNA, you're gonna get some more well-known stars, but you're watching more well-known stars do bad skits, bad angles, and have a lot of bad matches, mixed in with, that one good match we get every week, you know, and two matches on a good week. By the way, to answer my prior question, D'Lo Brown is here until July of 2004, so he does make it to the Impact era. But his last match that we're going to see, because he has a dark match, so we're not going to see that. His last match that we're going to see is the July 7th, 2004 pay-per-view, where he wrestles Monty Brown.
I'm still going to try to convince you to watch Impact
I
because we
may
only
be
are going to
bald.
have 3 months of it, and that's it.
I may be bald from ripping my hair out by this point next year.
It becomes a
Well,
much, I'll say this, Impact is a much easier watch in those early days.
yes, I mean it's pretty easy to watch three squash matches in a main event uh, than it is to watch, 2 hours of Vince Russo nonsense. Uh, But anyway, we can't get to the end of the show till we talk about the beginning of the show. One other thing before we dive into it. They're wanting to build to a tag match, and this is at least a little bit of this is obvious, but they're wanting to build to a tag match with Jerry Lynn and Paul London versus Conan and Juventud Guerrera, and Lynn is trying to get Juvi axed and replaced with Super Crazy because Juvi is a dick, and he whines about doing jobs. He whines about, matches not being more about him. And on a recent XPW show specifically, they were in a four-way that Hoovy was supposed to do a job in, and Hoovy pretended to have a knee injury to get out of doing the job in the match. And so Jerry Lynn is trying to get him ixnayed from any future TNA stuff.
I wish he was
Uh,
successful
man,
because we only saw the, yeah.
mhm. We're gonna get both Hoovy and Teddy Hart on this show. So I mean,
Oh, it's a lose
to
lose.
yeah, and I mean we already have Kid Cash, so there's a reason TNA is termed total nonstop assholes. So on to the show where Jeff Jarrett is charging at the SCX locker room with a baseball bat in his hand, trying to break down the door. He failed miserably at that, so security dragged him away. Um, you might recall last week he got beaten up by Eric Watts, Brian Lawler, and David Flair at the end of the show. And I guess the assumption is that they're in SEX, but they're not. Spoiler alert.
Nope, they're their own thing.
Yes. And we go to the announce team where Don West is wearing a very shiny gold shirt.
I Don West's attire here on out is top tier.
I don't know where he buys his clothes. I know 2003 Aria would have loved to shop wherever Don West goes. You know, and but that also tells you everything you need to know about my style back in the day. Um, Conan.
If this was 20
Mhm.
years ago, I would have definitely signed you up for what not to wear.
Oh my! I wouldn't have had anything left in my closet, I think.
You get five thousand
Conan.
dollars worth of clothes.
I I could buy $5,000 5,000 well, 2,500 $2 black t-shirts from Value City. They would probably kill me if I did that. Um,
Where would you wear
so
it for the bottoms?
I would just, buy really long $2 black t-shirts. So it'd all be $2 black dresses.
You're a piece of work.
Yeah. Uh, I'm pointing to my brain here. We're not a video podcast, so you can't see this. So Conan hits the ring, and despite being a heel, he does all of his babyface catchphrases that make the fans cheer for him before introducing Jerry Lynn's non-Kid Cash opponent of the week, Damien and Halloween. Now, Damien and Halloween, for most American fans, are best remembered as not even WCW mid-carders. Like when they were used, they were at best WCW opening card guys, and they really weren't used all that much. Um, and so Jerry Lynn, needing a partner, he went out and found David Young of all people. And we find out that Lynn was supposed to team with Paul London, who got injured. And I thought he may have actually signed with WWE already, but I don't think that's for a few months still.
No,
Um,
I heard on commentary from today that he got a stomach bug.
well, I mean, that could very well just be a cover up. I mean, you know, I don't know what talk about this match while I do some digging for Paul London.
All right, well, you do that. Um, Conan had a fantastic line about David Young. He said, quote, David Young could have a personality transplant with Frankenstein, and Frankenstein would still have more charisma.
See, I thought you
Jesus
were going to talk
Christ.
about him being in on Tough Enough 4. And I'm like, there's worse things than getting the $250,000 that Daniel Puder got that year.
Oh, he got 1 million.
Well, no, he got a 4-year contract for 250,000 each, and then he got cut after one year. Um, so by the way, we have not seen the end of Paul London in TNA, but there is very, very, very little Paul London left, and he's going to be in WWE in June, actually. Let me see. Let me just because I just went to 2003 to try to break it down here. Let me just go to TNA 2003 and go from there. So let's see. Right now, what we're March 12th or whatever.
Yeah, March
So
12th.
it's possible because he was just wrestling in 01 on the 9th in Japan, and he doesn't wrestle again until April 5th. So he may be legitimately injured, whatever, form that takes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but let's see here. So yeah, Paul London has 2 more matches left in TNA, and the next one isn't until May 21st. So there's that.
Where
Um,
things get weird.
yes. So Damien, by the way, David Young, his one move is a spine buster. He gives it to Halloween 30 seconds into the match, and Damien didn't even try to make the save. So Halloween had to kick out. Uh, David then, quote unquote, hurt his knee on a springboard dive to the outside. Conan ran over and drop kicked him. Young got helped to the back as the heels double team Lynn until Lynn got a victory roll out of nowhere and the pin on Damien. And in case you're curious, that is a worked injury. After the match, Conan got in the ring to yell at his boys again. Jerry Lynn came back and told Conan to stop. So Conan beat the crap out of Lynn, with Damien and Halloween eventually pulling Conan off. I wrote that this was certainly the opener of the show, rating 4.5 out of 10.
I gave it a little bit less than that. I gave it a 4, but we're on the same wavelength.
I
This is just essentially leading up to what's going to be the payoff in a few weeks. It has to be Jerry Lynn versus Conan.
feel like that has to be it, but I mean, yeah, it's like, there's no hurry to get there. And honestly, it's Conan. Like, he's a great guy. I met him at one of the WrestleManias. Him and Rey Mysterio were next to each other at a WrestleCon signing, and
Mm-hmm.
he had no line because, of course, everyone is there for Rey. So I talked to Conan for probably a good 5 minutes, and no one came up to interrupt us at all. He's a really nice guy, and one of those guys you'd love to talk about wrestling forever and a day with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I have no desire in watching him wrestle, and we're going to see him wrestle a lot. But he's better off, especially at this point, being a manager.
Yeah, and that's essentially because when we get to Three Life Crew, which is oddly enough soon. Um, it's mainly Road Dogg and Truth
Yeah.
who
You
does
know,
the majority of the work.
yep. Um, so yeah, so that's that. And by the way, in case I don't mention it, because like Jeff Jarrett mentions it in passing later, Ron Killings is not on this show. I guess he was standing in the freebie line too long, and the place was sold out by the time he got to the front. So for whatever reason, this Ron Killings angle is continuing, and who knows where it's going.
We'll find out
Eric
next week.
Watts. Eric Watts was coming to the ring with his bag, and Goldilocks confronted him, but Jeff Jarrett attacked him until security pulled Jarrett away. Eric got up, dusted himself off, and walked to the ring. Watts, who just came in with his bag of gear, announced that he is not here to fight tonight. So why did he bring his gear with him? And if he's not here to fight, why did he come to the arena at all? Um, now,
Mind
Watts
games,
said,
apparently.
yes, Watts is bragging that he got in Jeff's head. Jarrett managed to get away from security and run to the ring after Watts, so security ran back down and dragged Jarrett away again. Burt Prentice, who is the biggest badass on the show, also got involved to break it up. Whatever happened to that feud with him and Conan? That was a feud for the ages building there.
I think he left it to Jerry Lynn. Probably for the
I think
best.
that yeah. I, there's no situation that replacing Burt Prentice with Jerry Lynn isn't for the best. And I don't know about Burt Prentice's promoting skills, but I'm willing to give Jerry Lynn a shot first before Burt. Actually, I don't know if Burt's still alive or not, but you know, if he's
I
dead, I
think
really would. If he's dead, I'd really have Jerry Lynn promote a show before Burt. Um, so Goldie went somewhere else and interviewed Kid Cash about his X Division title match tonight. I didn't even hear them say who he was wrestling at this point. But Red walked up and said that everyone knows that if Trinity wasn't out there, Cash would never retain the belt. Red told Cash to leave her in the back. We then get a weird video package with, you know, random. All I wrote was that a weird video package aired
can I
before
do
deal.
this one?
Sure, go ahead.
Because I wrote this down. I had to write this down. Because we play by different rules. I want to, if something weird is happening, I want to take notes. Whoa. I'm listening to myself. It's an echo. Anyway, here's what the video said. Taken hostage by an oppressed dictator, held captive by a tyrannical regime. After 5 years, the handcuffs are off. The chain of captivity has been broken, and he's free. Easy Money's theme plays, and it's D'Lo Brown. What the fuck was that?
If you ever need proof, or I mean, this promo is just proof that Vince Russo's not gone. But the whole being held hostage thing, that's a Vince Russo line. He had X-Pac say it when X-Pac came back in 1998 to the WWF. He said it about Nash and Hall being held hostage by their $1 million contracts in WCW. And the same thing here. D'Lo Brown, who got like a really good contract in like 99 or 2000, he's being quote unquote held hostage by them, because that the worst thing in the world is to make, $400,000 a year in 2000, 2001, 2002. Anyway, Mike Tenay nearly wet his pants in joy. And I'll be honest, like, for this company, D'Lo Brown is a big signing, especially if, the plan is to push him as one of their guys, and pushing him towards the top. Because if this is the 1999 D'Lo Brown, especially the before Draws injury D'Lo Brown, he can be one of the best wrestlers on the show. If this is 2001, 2002 D'Lo Brown, who was uninspired and uncaring, it's not for the best. But of course, like I said, we know that D'Lo's gonna, have some bangers and matches we're gonna see. So at least for a little bit, we're gonna see the best of D'Lo. But D'Lo Brown comes out and says that he will not run down the WWE, and then he proceeds to run down the WWE. He says that he was told he's not a team player, he's not good enough. He disappeared from TV. He doesn't know how to get over, and he needs to go to OVW to teach others to get over. And then because, again, you have to know that Vince Russo's still around. He does talk about politics and the glass ceiling and a level playing field. This, like, literally, if Vince Russo didn't write this promo, then D'Lo Brown is channeling his inner Vince Russo because that's all Vince Russo isms. He came to TNA because the locker room was just full of guys busting their asses, and he will be nothing short of a bona fide superstar in TNA. And this was not a great promo.
No, it
The vet,
wasn't. It was, as far as TNA debut promos go, it's one step above Damien Sandow's promo, if you remember that
oh,
one.
oh yes. Well, and part of the problem with Damian Sandoz was he was the 85th former WWE guy to come in and say that WWE sucked. D'Lo Brown is at least closer to the first former WWE guy coming in saying WWE sucks. You know. This brings out Sonny Siaki. Siaki shook his hand before offering him a spot in SEX. D'Lo said no. Siaki then told D'Lo he was stupid, so D'Lo kicked his ass. And ladies and gentlemen, despite the fact that he cut a bad promo, if this was the end of D'Lo Brown on this show, it would have been like, okay, we'll see where we go in week two. Not the strongest start, but he ends his first segment on top with his head high, his bobbling head up high. D'Lo Brown is a winner in TNA after one segment. Unfortunately, this is not the last time he's going to be on the show. TNA X Division champion Kid Cash with Trinity versus Johnny Storm versus Amazing Red. And to continue the tradition of losing equals title shots, this is Johnny Storm's debut, and Amazing Red has now lost 2 matches in a row and is getting an X Division title match. And the story of this was that Amazing Red went to the TNA offices during the week and said, I'm not going to whine and complain before he began whining and complaining. And then speaking of people using repeat themes, Johnny Storm used Chris Sabin's theme. That is quickly challenging Abyss's theme for the most used theme on this show, don't you think?
Yeah, but that's going to stop soon because isn't I think next month Saban shows up.
The real Chris Sabin is here at least by the end of May. Um, and because I know like they do that WWA tour, the last one that I think is I think it's in Australia and New Zealand again. And
Eruption, yeah.
Chris Sabin is on that one. And they do a unification match between the X Division champion and the WWA junior champion or whatever the hell they called it, the cruiserweight champion, I think.
Yeah.
And Chris Sabin was one of the participants, but it was like a 4-way or a 6-way. So I couldn't tell you if he's the champion, but I can tell you that he's in TNA by that point. Um, so they did that spot that everyone misses a move to start the match, which I always think is a weird spot to do. Twice during this show, or twice during this match, actually. I don't know if there was just a weird production snafu or what, but Tanay and West begin calling a replay. And the problem is there's no replay being aired, but Tanay and West are calling it. So I think, and I don't know how this is even possible, because that you would think like the monitors are just showing what the TV is showing, but I think they had a replay airing on their monitors that just wasn't airing to the live audience. I mean, that would basically have to be it, because otherwise, what the hell are they talking about?
It was mentioned later on during this match that they're having some issues in the truck, kind of
Well,
like what happened last week when their feed went down for 4 minutes.
Cash did his springboard front flip drop kick to Johnny Storm's groin that he really needs to retire that move because every time he's done it, he's drop kicked people in the dick. Um, they did a
He
triple
keeps kicking
German.
me in the dick. Why? Do they keep kicking me in the dick? Thank you, Vegeta.
They did a triple German suplex off the top rope where Red was on top. I think Johnny Storm was in the middle giving it to him, and then Kid Cash was on the bottom rope giving it to Storm. And everyone landed on their head, including Amazing Red, who flipped all the way over and bounced, ass over tea kettle to where he was laying on his head with his legs on the top rope.
Yep.
Um, we saw Trinity do a moonsault to the outside of the ring where she kicked Red in the head with one foot and Cash in the head with the other foot, while she landed face first on the pretty black mats. Storm gave Trinity a wacky twisting dive. Cash then got Storm in the ring and finished him off with the Moneymaker. And Cash West and Tenay suddenly discovered that Trinity interferes in every match. Um, After the match, Red confronted Trinity, but Cash beat the shit out of Red to ostensibly continue a heel turn for Kid Cash, or in this case, actually start it. And I gave this match a 7.0
Yeah.
out of 10.
I gave it an 8. I thought the action was really, really good. Johnny Storm hang around for a little while, but not too long. Like he becomes a regular on Explosion at this point. He'll show up one or two more times and then he's gone.
I think he does when they do the America's X Cup when it's Mexico versus England. I think he's on that show. It sounds right. Whether or not he is, it sounds right. Goldie went to the SCX locker room and asked Siaki where his backup was. Siaki was pissed, so Sanders punched him in the face. Gilberti said that they were here for Vince Russo and gave everyone a pep talk, and somehow no one punched him in the face. We
because
then
he
get the
actually
match.
sounded like he believed it. And we also have the reasons that I liked. He berated Skipper and the rest of Triple X because they were spending a lot of their time in Japan and not holding it down here. And then the Harris boys, he tells them, go kick some ass because management thinks they ain't worth a damn. Doesn't think anybody in SEX is worth a damn. Now that's motivation right there.
To be fair, the number of people in SEX worth a damn are pretty damn low. And
Triple X. That's pretty much it.
Hell, if the Rock and Roll Express are still part of SEX, I'd include them too.
No, they're done.
But, yeah, I know, but if Dusty Rhodes is still in the NWO, then the Rock and Roll Express are still in SEX. So then we get the match that I knew was coming because I remembered this, years after I saw it the first time. Ron and Don Harris hit the ring to take on Steve Corino and the Sandman. Now, in kayfabe, there's a lot of, I don't know who to blame for this one, because the Sandman's entrance for a decade at this point has been to walk around the arena, spend 5 minutes walking around the arena. Steve Corino is very familiar with this since he's been in matches with the Sandman where he had to wait 5 minutes for the Sandman to walk to the ring. However, despite the fact that his partner just started his walk to the ring and walk around the crowd, Steve Corino got in the ring, the bell rang, and then the Harrises promptly pinned him with the H-bomb in about 27 seconds.
Yep.
Now, Tenay and West are blaming the Sandman for this, and the Harris twins then just beat the shit out of the Sandman post-match. Carino runs over for the save because, it worked so well for him the first time. The Harris twins became 2-0 versus Carino tonight, and then threw a large piece of fence at Sandman. Carino began bleeding because the sun must have come up in Nashville that morning. Ron and Don Harris win. Steve Carino, I'm pretty sure, is never seen again on this TV show. And somehow I still gave this match a 1.0 out of 10.
That's exactly what I gave him for the same reasons that I had written down. Carino is done. He goes to 0-1, where a lot of people have gone. It's where Vader went.
Well, Vader is still in NWA, but he's got a knee injury, and there's a whole big rigmarole happening right now for Vader and NWA.
Yeah, he's winding down.
He will not be back on this. He will not be back on this show until 2015 when he's wrestling Bram on a random. Was it Bram or no? It was Bram. It was Bram that he wrestled on Impact one time.
Yeah.
Why? Who knows?
Bram was going after old TNA stars. He claimed himself to be the future, so he's getting rid of the past.
Because what the world needed was Bram versus Vader.
Well, you get lots of Bram in NWA. He's their champ now.
And, so many people are watching the NWA. I guarantee more people, well, this probably isn't saying much, but I guarantee more people are watching Speed. Goldilocks did not leave the SCX locker room in the last 27 seconds. So now she's interviewing Mike Sanders. Mike Sanders ignored her and looked down Hollywood's top. Glenn told him if he doesn't win, don't bother coming back into the locker room. Glenn then told Holly to show her tits and ass or she would be fired. And we'll get to that. Here's the problem when two nondescript blonde people are rolling around on top of each other. It's hard to keep track of which nondescript blonde person is which. So Hollywood may have shown her nipple at one point. She may not have shown her nipple at one point. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Speaking of people who thankfully did not show their nipple this week, Dusty Rhodes came out next. He moseyed to the ring and said there was a fracas. I don't know what the hell else he was talking about until he talked about sons of famous daddies. And so that brought out the Lawler and Flair that no one wants to see wrestle. David has with him the fake NWA title. Watts didn't even bother coming out, but Rhodes cut a promo on him anyway. Dusty said Jarrett ate all of his food, which really says something. Dusty then called...
Yeah, it's a reference from last week's promo of Eric Watts. I didn't quite get it either.
Yes. Dusty then called Ric Flair an asshole. I did not make a typo there. He called Ric Flair an asshole, and then called David Flair an asshole, and then ran down Jerry Lawler and said Bryan acts like a fool, as Bryan did that puffing out the cheeks thing that he does. Dusty said Bryan has talent and could be great before slapping him and saying he was the king of D's nuts.
Ooh, the ultimate 2003 insult.
Yeah, if you ever needed proof that this was a show in 2003, Dusty Rhodes saying D's nuts, really cemented that there for you. Lawler and Flair beat up Dusty until D'Lo Brown ran in to make the save. Yay, our new hero, D'Lo Brown, is here. He's going to kick some ass, right? Eric Watts ran down to beat up Dusty Rhodes, so Brian Lawler and David Flair beat up D'Lo Brown, our new hero. And so Stone Cold Jeff Jarrett ran down and beat up all three of them. And I wrote, I hope this means the Jarrett versus Watts feud is over, but I know better.
It doesn't even go anywhere.
Yeah. Any thoughts on this fantastic segment?
It kind of sheds to light what will happen in the next few weeks. Like, I remember how this feud ends. And it's not good. Like, it ends in the most convoluted way. It does mean we are
Yep.
going to see the return of Nikita Koloff, though.
I would think them having a match is the most convoluted way that this feud could end.
No, it gets even more convoluted than that.
So Goldilocks has apparently taken up residency in the SEX locker room because she's still there. And now she's interviewing Triple X about why the hell it's taken so long for the Triple X AMW tag title match to happen. Look, it. I mean, there has to be an easier way to say they're all in Japan, because that's basically what it is. That like this is the first time they had two out of the three of them, you know, there at the show in like a month. Like there has to
Well,
be a
they did
kayfabe
tie it
way to
in.
get around saying that.
Well, I don't think so because they mentioned that they were promoting SEX Sports Entertainment Extreme in Japan, so
There you
I
go. But it's
it
like
makes
but
sense.
like the point needed to be driven home more. And they could also brought up it would have been so easy. Remember the original promo Russo cut when they put SEX together and they put in Christopher Daniels and Low Key and Russo talked about how those two weren't being booked by TNA because they were both had Japanese commitments and Russo was like, just tell me your dates and we'll give you all the time off you need. That's all you had to do. Just bring up that Russo said that not that long ago on this show. And okay, you know what? It sucks, but that's what we already know that going in. They're in Japan a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and Vince Russo allowed them to do that while still being the tag team champions, or in this case, not the tag team champions, but somehow Russo had the power to make this tournament, in their favor. Um, So anyway, we go to our next match. Mike Sanders comes out, and during that promo earlier with Mike Sanders, one of the 87 times we listened to Glenn Gilberti on this show, he's going to be in an enhancement match this week. He's going to be against, I forget how they termed it, but he's going to be wrestling, a job guy this week. And so Mike Sanders comes out, and who comes out to wrestle Mike Sanders here in 2003 on pay-per-view? Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Hello.
Hacksaw Jim Duggan comes out to wrestle Mike Sanders. And,
Tanay actually made it make sense
well,
because he was
it's
one of the
still,
guys that Sanders ran down when he had that sent out of Gilberti and Mike Tanay. So why not?
but by the way, to continue on what I was ranting about last week, Mike Sanders and Glenn Gilberti won a tag team match against America's Most Wanted last week. And this week, Mike Sanders is wrestling Jim Duggan, and Glenn Gilberti is doing 17 promos, while America's Most Wanted is getting a tag team title match. So just throwing that out there. And by the way, it's not even building up to AMW defending the belts against Gilberti and Sanders after they win the belts. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But Duggan's wrestling in overalls because, I mean, he hasn't wrestled much at all since WCW ended, so he's put on a bit of weight. And so the overalls hit it a little bit. And of course, this is, 2 years before he comes back to WWE, where they team him up with both Eugene and Super Crazy, which are two of the more random teams in the history of pro wrestling. Anyway, remember that Harris Twins match we just saw that went 27 seconds? I
Yeah.
guarantee, I guarantee that had that match been given however long this match went, 3 or 4 minutes, and this match had gone 27 seconds, both would have been better. Instead, this match goes on forever. And like I said, it's probably only like 3 or 4 minutes, but 3 or 4 minutes is forever sometimes. And this match is just horrible. And Duggan wins with a running clothesline.
Hey, if you need to take a shit, you need to do it now. They're shutting the water off in 15 minutes. Cindy.
I'm in the middle of a podcast.
Oh, I'm sorry. And that just went on there, didn't it?
Yes, it did. Don't edit that out, Aria.
Oh, I had no plan on it. Oh, Lord. This is what's called a throwback, ladies and gentlemen, to the first show, or one of the first shows, when she came in and asked you if you wanted a drink, and I said no.
Yeah.
By the way, that was more entertaining than this match, where Glenn Gilberti then walked to the ring to run down Sanders before running after Duggan, because the swerve you see, Mike Sanders isn't really going to be out of SEX now. Duggan just beat on both of them until Glenn clipped his knee from behind. Down ran referees who pointed at the SEX locker room. Somehow, I did not give this match a 0. I gave it 0.5 out of 10.
I saw this as every single Jim Duggan match we saw in WCW. Because that's exactly how it went. And I gave it a 1.5 because I felt that nostalgia flowing through me because I love WCW Saturday Night and WCW Worldwide. Like, I was a fan of the C shows.
You were the reason those things are still on the air.
Or were.
You and that over 50 demographic that still watch Saturdays at 6:05, long after everybody else in the world did. So, by the way, before this match, Duggan had wrestled a couple times already this year. He'd wrestled probably 25 matches since the end of WCW 2 years earlier. And looking at the dates of those 25 or so matches, he was not on one of those Time Warner contracts where he got to, sit at home for a year and make money. Because he just wrestled sporadically over the next 2 years before this random appearance. He was in the XWF, if you remember that, fun thing. And by the way, this is not going to be the end, apparently, of Jim Duggan. I spoiled that for myself. Jim Duggan will be back, like, in the next couple weeks. Not to mention that he'll be back come October when spoiler alert, when they're teasing Hulk Hogan coming into TNA, and instead they bring in Jim Duggan 1 week, which, tells you everything
weird.
you need to know about the 6 months from now.
Yeah.
By the way, Harley Cameron right now is on the AEW Revolution pre-show, and we could be watching Harley Cameron be a national treasure instead. That would be much better.
Because let's wrap this. Let's get this done and over with quick. Because
in case Harley Cameron does something interesting.
No, because when does Revolution start for you? 4 o'clock at 7, top of the hour.
In an hour and 13 minutes.
Oh, so we got that.
So anyway, we've got some good news. Goldilocks has left the SEX locker room. She's just gone a little outside of it, though, because she's at Raven's Perch, where AJ Styles randomly is, because he's wrestling Raven tonight in a #1 Contenders match, and he is sitting in Raven's Perch so he can prepare to beat Raven later on. Not sure how much sense that made. Anyway, Raven ran over, so AJ threw a chair at his head, and the Harrisees came over and dragged Raven away. Then we get our tag team title match. Christopher Daniels and Low Key versus America's Most Wanted for the vacant tag team titles. Set up back on February 5th when Triple X lost the belts during what was at the time the worst time double pin in pro wrestling history. Brian Lee of the New Church was pinned for 7 seconds before Slash made his cover for the simultaneous pinfall. And the story going into this match was that Harrison Storm were unaware which 2 members of Triple X would be in the match until the opening bell. So they did the big brawl that breaks down into a tag team match that TNA, becomes famous for. AMW at one point picks up Christopher Daniels to throw at Low Key, but Low Key ducks and Christopher Daniels goes flying. So America's Wanted then picks up Low-Ki and throws him at Chris Daniels, which I don't know. What would have been better if Low-Ki would have just caught Christopher Daniels, or if he ducked and let Christopher Daniels crash and burn first?
Mm-hmm.
So these two teams are going to wrestle each other a lot for the next 2 years, and it's usually Daniels and Skipper. But I mean, needless to say, these two teams end up having some pretty damn good chemistry, and it's apparent here. AMW give the death sentence to Daniels, but Low-Ki dives on the referee before he can count three. Skipper interferes, gives Harris the play of the day behind the ref's back, but he kicks out. Skipper runs in with a chair, but gets super kicked. Daniels taps to the sharpshooter, but the referee missed it. Harris had Low-Ki pinned with a catatonic, but again, the referee missed it. Finally, Low-Ki hit Chris Harris with the title belt. Daniels made the pin to get the win the belts. And so once again, Triple X are your World Tag Team Champions of the world. And I'm not sure how this is going to be much better since we couldn't get two of the three in the country for the past 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, when we are going to get them in the country, like I said, this is a damn good match. 8.0 out of 10.
I liked it less than you did. Even though I admit it was a great tag match, I had it at an 8 until we had like 3 minutes of a ref being an absolute moron at the end. They're suspending your disbelief, and then there's this.
It's TNA. We got the crazy overbooked finish, and by the way, Paul Walter Hauser is now locking up with QT Marshall, which is better than that Jim Duggan Mike Sanders match. But
But not better than the QT Marshall Rizzler match that we saw a couple pay-per-views ago.
hey, I was at that pay-per-view, and I may not know who the hell he is, but the crowd certainly liked him. Um, but yeah, it's an overbooked finish, and TNA is the kings of doing the overbooked finish. But again, they all have good chemistry together, and I'm looking forward to the future with them,
I gave it a
seeing how that
6.
goes. All right. So to the outside, okay, before we get to this, remember how D'Lo Brown debuted earlier in the show? And I said, man, if they would have ended here, would it be great? Then remember when D'Lo Brown got beaten down in a further segment and had to get saved by Jeff Jarrett? That sure sucked. Well, outside of the arena, Sonny Siaki is beating up D'Lo Brown in a one-on-one fight. Now, we didn't see how this started. We just saw Sonny Siaki beating up D'Lo Brown in a one-on-one fight. And D'Lo Brown, our new hero, had to be saved by Stone Cold Jeff Jarrett. Really?
Yep. But enough about that. Let's talk about this segment.
For what it's worth, it does go up from here for D'Lo Brown. I'm serious, but it sure as hell doesn't feel that way. Anyway, uh you really want to talk about this next segment, so by all means, go ahead.
So out comes Disco Inferno, Glenn Gilberti, How Is He Gifted, and Hollywood. I thought she was a one and done. She isn't. She's here for a while. How long? I don't know. He runs down Nashville saying it's where the idiots, hillbillies, and inbreds live. They want to be in Hollywood, California, in front of a live studio audience. And Disco gives a spin on the Vince McMahon line. He goes, "We know what you like, and whether or you want to or not, we'll give it to you." As Vince McMahon goes, "I don't care what you like. We're going to tell you what you like, and you're going to like it."
Yes. Wasn't that always nice, when the promoter tells you that you don't deserve something,
Hmm.
or that he's going to give you something whether you like it or not.
So Hollywood has issued a challenge to any woman out there. Well, Glenn Gilbert issued the challenge. Hollywood is the proxy. Challenged any woman out there to show their ass and get beat on their ass or something like that. Disco goads Athena, but says that if you paid 5 cents for her, he'd ask for change. Ouch. He then goads
But
Lollipop, one of the cage dancers, to come to the ring. And she
uh,
does.
the crowd, by the way, was chanting for Athena because even though they did that awful angle with her a few months ago, the fans still like Athena, and they're still not giving us Athena. And by the way, when I say Athena, I'm not talking about Ember Moon. I'm talking about the ring girl, who for some weird reason the crowd really likes her.
I think it's because also a lot of the people in this crowd were Burt would also attend and watch a lot of Burt Prentice shows, and she was booked on a lot of Burt Prentice shows as a manager.
Hmm.
So Lollipop and Hollywood have the cat fight. During the brawl, one of Lollipop's boobs pops out, or we see a nipple, at least. So they try to cover it up. And then Hollywood rips off Lollipop's top when she starts playing to the crowd. So she
Yeah,
tried her best to hide it and with Borash's help. And Borash, I guess he was married at the time because he was looking away from Lollipop.
she was really not trying hard to cover up at all, like and that was the point. And here's the thing too. In addition to all the adults who were enjoying looking at this woman's breasts on TV, you know who else was watching this? All those children that were in the front row, that, by the way, got taken out of the front row by their parents during the main event. But yeah, there was a whole bunch of children there for what was essentially a strip show, which was pretty darn close to illegal when WWE did it with Mae Young and Miss Kitty those times.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's no less illegal, you know, bringing children to a peep show in Nashville than it was in New York.
It might even be more illegal.
Well, it's only legal if, it's your cousin. And I don't think Lollipop was any of their cousins. Yeah, was it Hollywood
Yeah,
or Lollipop who earlier their boob was coming out the top?
it was Lollipop.
Was it again, you have two nondescript blondes, it's hard to tell them apart. I think that's
Right.
partially why people like Athena because, hey, of all things you can say about Athena, she's not blonde. She's a brunette.
And she actually shows some personality.
Yes. Yeah, and
So I gave
I
this
bet this would,
segment a 1 out of 10. I give Lollipop's boobs a 7 out of 10.
considering you didn't even rate actual matches at times, you rated the segment. But yeah, I bet this is Jerry Jarrett's idea. This used to happen all the time in Memphis back in the 80s. They'd bring in Leilani Kai and have her boobs pop out or something. It did not happen in Memphis.
No.
And I do mention Leilani Kai because actually that dark match that a lot of people outside missed was Leilani Kai defeating Madison Eagles for the NWA Women's title as a dark match before the TNA pay-per-view.
TNA
So
didn't have a women's division until I'm not even going to call what's coming up a division.
no, they don't have a real women's division until Gail Kim comes in. They do a little bit of stuff with her and like Jacqueline at one point. I think they wrestle, and I'm pretty sure she has at least a couple matches beforehand before they start the official women's division in 2007.
Don't forget Cyrelda in 2006.
So you know the peak of TNA right there. All right. So Stone Cold Jeff Jarrett returns to the broadcast table to provide commentary on the main event, which is Raven versus AJ Styles in a number one contenders match. And like I mentioned earlier, people are leaving during this match, and I realized later on it's all the parents with children who, minutes earlier, got a strip show to watch instead of a wrestling show. Um, they they debut the entrance video spliced into their entrance thing that becomes a TNA staple for a while. But here it happened, I'm pretty sure for the first time with AJ Styles, where they spliced in his entrance theme, his entrance video. It's not the same as the DX entrance, but if you need something to compare it to, that's what it would be.
Mm-hmm.
So Raven hit AJ with a chair. Where was the referee, you might ask? He was talking to Jeff Jarrett. It got to the point where Jeff asked the referee why the hell he was talking to him. AJ was wearing a crimson mask a minute in. And by the way, remember how I keep saying you have to lose an X Division match in order to get a title match? Raven won his X Division match 2 weeks ago, which means he will never get an X Division title match ever again. The fans did not know how to react to this match as both are technically heels, and also both of our top contenders have gotten their asses kicked by Jeff Jarrett multiple times in the past few weeks. For no real reason, towards the end, Raven shoves down Jarrett, so Jarrett got up and kicked both men's ass again. Down came security, and Jarrett kicked their ass too. AJ with a missile drop kick to the referee. Raven hit the even flow DDT. A second referee ran in to make a 2 count. That referee took a bump seconds later. So AJ gave Raven a Styles clash, and Raven kicked out when referee number 1 woke up. The actual finish made me facepalm because when that second referee went down, I wrote as a joke, I bet they do a double pin. And sure fucking enough, the finish of this match was another poorly timed double pin. AJ hits the Pele kick. At the same time, Raven hits him with a chair, which somehow was a lot smoother than it sounds, because, like, by the sounds of it, that does not sound like a very smooth move there, but it happened. Raven, because they were supposed to fall down next to each other and they didn't, Raven basically had to scoot backwards about 3 feet in order to get into position for them both to gingerly lay one arm on each other while still having their shoulders down. And the two referees woke up, counted to 3, and the match ended, and then the show went off the air pretty much immediately. And at some point, they're going to do one of these right? One of these double pin finishes. So, and to make it worse, is like we had this, like we literally, the tag team titles were held up because of this, and we just saw a video package about it, 20 minutes ago. Why the hell do we need the same finish again? It's like, there's no other way to get around not doing a finish. But despite that, I still enjoyed the match. I will never, be mad about an AJ Styles match as long as he's with somebody who can at least have a decent match. It's almost a guarantee that AJ Styles will then have a good match. By the way, where the hell is Larry Zbyszko? Questions that have never been asked before and will never be asked again. And oh my God, Hologram and Blake Christian just killed each other on a Dragon Rana. And by the way, so I gave this match a 6.0 out of 10.
Wow, we are far apart on this show.
You gave it a 2?
No, not that bad, but it was disappointing. I thought this match was disappointing. They had some heat going to the match, but it never got out of second gear. And I also really didn't like Raven goading Jarrett into provoking him, getting escort away from ringside. We get the bullshit ending of the double pin, then off the air. We'll see you next Monday night on Nitro ending. So I gave it a 4.
Yowie wowie. So honestly, I was at the point, even though I gave this match a pretty good rating, I wanted to leave about 4 minutes ago when the first row left too. But so that brings us to the end of the show, which for TNA standards was a shockingly decent match, or decent show, excuse me. Uh, average match quality 4.5 out of 10. I gave overall enjoyment 5.0 because yet again, it would have been higher if the dipshit who books the show knew what the fuck he was doing. And future build, another one of those things that would be higher, but we say 4.0 this week because it appears we're actually moving away from Jeff Jarrett versus Eric Watts. But Jeff Jarrett did his usual fantastic job of burying anybody who has a chance to get over more than him. Why did D'Lo Brown have to be buried on this show? Why are Raven and AJ Styles, his top contenders, treated like jokes week in and week out? And I know I keep saying this, but how the hell does this match eventually draw the biggest buy rate in all the weekly pay-per-views? I it, I'm waiting for like some amazing moment in the next couple weeks, like, oh, this is why. But the best I'm getting is Raven debuted in January, and then 3 months later, they have a match that people kind of want to see, despite you know how much bullshit we've had to get to that point.
Yeah.
So it gives us an average rating of a 4.5 out of 10, which is still less than half, but still is better than a lot of the shit we've seen lately.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So any final thoughts on this week's show?
Yeah, the good show streak is going to end it too.
Uh, that's wonderful to know. So
I
yeah.
I took a look at next week's show, and yeah, it's moment number 21 for you.
Or I'm going to quit doing the show.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I look forward to and I always do these fucking things on Sunday, so it's like, the worst way to end a week, to end your weekend is to watch a show, but I'm still trying to figure out when would be a good time to watch and do this show, because I don't want to ruin my Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday either. So, we're kind of at loggerheads here.
And there's going to
All
be some
right.
weeks where we have to do two.
Oh boy. I suddenly don't want to go to WrestleMania anymore because that requires me to do two of these shows. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this week's show. When all else fails, I can almost guarantee, unless the roof collapses on everybody, Revolution will be 8,000 times better than this. So go watch Revolution, don't watch TNA, and we'll call it a day.
What about modern day
Thank you.
TNA? Can we watch that?
Oh my God, modern day TNA would kick ass. You know, guarantee modern day TNA would be 8 million times better than this. Uh, but anyway, we're just gonna tap out for now and save my ranting and raving until next week's show, which promises to be a doozy, I guess. But anywho, thank you all for listening. I hope you all enjoyed the show, and we'll talk to you again in 7 days.